should be good. So, I asked Britt to help me. I want her to ask you the questions instead of me.
Yeah.
But then I can come in and bug you, or if you. But so, do you want me? Do you have good service? We'll listen to you. You think? Well, I mean, we can do it however you want. First question's easy. What's your name?
My name is Glen Berkemeyer.
Do you have any idea where your parents got your name?
I have no idea. It's just my first name because I don't have a middle name. And of course my last name is Berkemeyer because that's a family name.
So what is your nickname? Since you don't have a middle name.
Nemi.
Nemi?
No middle name.
No
No
middle
middle
initial.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good one. I'm going to send it to you on Messenger. What's
Yeah,
your birthday, Glenn?
11/15/48.
You guys almost have the same birthday. Close.
Yeah.
Where were you born?
In San Antonio, Texas.
Is that where you grew up?
Actually, I think I grew up maybe 5 years old or something like that. And then we moved to Houston. My mother did not like San Antonio because it was too cold there.
I
And
feel like
that's-
nowhere in Texas is really that cold,
That's
is it?
exactly right. She said if we move again, it's going to be further south. But she hated the cold.
She never did tell you how she decided on Glen?
No,
Do you have siblings?
I had 3 brothers. My oldest brother, he passed away, and then the next brother down, he passed away and he had a motorcycle wreck. And then my youngest brother still lived.
What's his name?
Keith,
Keith.
I have no idea where he lives, but he does. Somewhere in Kansas or something like that.
Are you able to see him, Brett? Yeah. Okay. So you take over. I did the beginning. You word it your way. You don't have to read it off there.
So, you've told us growing up a lot of stories about growing up in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've picked out maybe 1 or 2 of your, I guess, most fondest memories as a kid growing up in Houston,
Yeah.
what comes to mind?
Well, we lived in Bel Air, and there was at the back of the subdivision, there was a huge drainage ditch and a creek at the bottom of it. And one of my first memories was my dad taking me down there to fish. And, you know, I think back now, I think, yuck. I mean, you know, if you caught something out there, you certainly wouldn't want to eat it. But he has a picture of me holding my rod up with a fish on it. And that was I guess, the fondest memory. I remember going to school, and we rode the school bus, and the bus had a number, and of course when I got to school the first day I forgot it. And I got on a bus. There was one there, so I got on it, and it was the wrong bus. And anyway, I finally got back home, and my mother kind of drilled into my head my bus number, and so everything was fine after that. Went to school there, and we lived in that house, and then we before that we actually lived in another house, but I don't remember anything about that. And then we moved into Spring Branch. Actually it was in the country at the time. That was just a little shell road. And that's where we grew up. And as it turns out, all these houses around us were not mansions, but they were all much, much bigger houses, much nicer houses. And all the kids that I went to school with had money. And I still rode the school bus, and they had their own cars. I mean, like they had convertibles and stuff like that when they were sophomores in high school. But I rode the bus when I was a senior in high school, but it still got me there. And played football, and that was probably my favorite thing about going to school. And I had learned a little bit of drafting, and the people, my friends there in school in that class, they would come to me and they'd say, well, we don't know how to draw that. So then they'd say, well, you do it for us. So next thing I knew, I was doing about half the class's drawings for them, and they were turning them in as if it was theirs. And the teacher told me, he said, well, one thing about it, Burke Myers, is you better not ever try to be a draftsman, you'll never make it. Which I kind of laughed to myself, because he had no idea that I was doing all the drawings just about in class. And then, I graduated from high school and went to the Army. I was a medic in the Army and spent a year and almost 2 years there, and then got out. But I spent one tour over in Korea, not during the Korean War, I'm not that old, but it was a post-war assignment. But I was stationed at the 125th Medevac Hospital, which at the time was the largest hospital in Korea. And when I was at high school, I met Marcia. She lived on the other side of the tracks, so to speak. On the other side of town, really. But we met in a teenage nightclub. I used to remember the name of it, but I forgot. And we started dating, and that went on and on. And when I got out of the Army, then we got married and began our life. The one thing I remember about the Army is the commanding officer called me in and said, okay, we're going to give you a test, and if you pass it, you'll get a higher rank. And I said, well, what does that entail? And he said, well, you'll have to enlist for a longer period of time. And I said, don't bother. Yeah, I was ready to get out of the Army. And so we came back here, and Marcia and I got married, and I went to work for an engineering company, for Trunkline Gas Company is the name of it. I never will forget, because we went to visit her kin in East Texas, and they put, I think it was Ann Edgell that did the column in the newspaper, and she wrote in there that I worked for a trucking firm, because I told her I worked for Trunkline Gas Company, and she put that I worked for a trucking firm, which wasn't even close.
Did you work as a drafter?
Yes.
I wonder. Well, yeah.
Well, and then as time went on, we we decided we wanted to live in a small town, so we moved to Junction. And I don't know whether some of that was coerced, whether Marcia really wanted to, or she was just going along with it. But my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents all lived in Junction, Texas. And so we moved to Junction, and we bought a little house there, a little rock house, and I started working for the highway department. I worked there for a while, and that got to be physically demanding, so I decided I went to work for West Texas Utilities, which was a power company, and between that and the REA, which is the Rural Electric Association, I learned all about climbing poles, hooking transformers, stringing wire, doing all the things that they do in that business. Well, after about 5 years, kind of got to thinking, this is going to be real tough when I have 2 kids, or when we have kids, and we're not going to be able to afford to put them in school because we were barely just getting by. And so we decided to move back to Houston. And all of these decisions and all of the thoughts and things like that they come with a certain amount of trepidation. You struggle, and you don't know what's best, and you want to do the right thing, but it's a struggle to figure out the direction you're going. So my mom knew some people, and Ray Locker was the chief draftsman at an engineering company, at a gas company, and so he got me a job, told me that he could, I could work for them, and so I did. It didn't take very long for me to realize that there were other opportunities. That was before we moved to Junction. Then we moved to Junction. Then we moved back. And when we got back to Texas, back to Houston, I started working for a company called Eagleton Engineering. And I was a grunt, gopher. I did drawings, but they were easy drawings and not too challenging. And one day I was on the 4th floor, and one day the guy that was doing the electrical was on the 3rd floor, and he got mad about something and came in, pulled out a big old buck knife and stuck the drawings he was working on and cut them in half and stormed out the building. Well, they were all due Monday, which this was on Friday. So Mr. Eagleton came down to look at the damage, and he said, and I just happened to be standing there, and he said, can you do that? Yeah. I may not know what I'm drawing, but I can draw anything. So he said, okay, you are him. So I spent the whole weekend there, stayed late at night and everything, reproducing these drawings. And Monday came around, I had them all done. He came back in and said, well, you're our new electrical designer. So, and the experience I had working in Junction paid off, tremendously, because I knew what most of that was. I knew a pretty good bit about it. And so then I just worked for for that. And Mr. Eagleton would come up with something, and he said, "Well, I can't find any engineers to go offshore. Will you?" I said, "Sure." So I'd go offshore and work, and I did all kinds of things that were really interesting and neat things. And then came back, and the economy in Houston, even though it's good most of the time, it kind of had turned down, and the engineering business had started getting slow. And so I decided it's time to change jobs, and I changed 2 or 3 times after that to different companies. But I never was out of work, and I never missed a paycheck. And I worked at Jacobs Engineering, which was a big company. I think they're like 3rd in the world, engineering companies. And they had me working on a project, and they came in and they said, "Whoa, I think he had a stroke." You know, after a while, I mean, of always being in turmoil with them, I finally just told Kathy, I said, "Look, don't call them, don't come see us, don't want any turmoil in my life. I've had enough." And so that was pretty well, you know, separated us from them. But yeah, it was always something that my grandfather at the ranch had yeah, that's what I heard. That's, yeah, it's Texas weather.
I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then I want to ask about Marcia. I went to Savannah with my 11-year-old a couple weeks ago, and we stopped in Dallas. And you know how it's so hot when you first get off the plane because they don't air condition those hallways?
Right.
And Sloan looks at me. She like steps off, and she just like hits this wall, and she looks at me, and she's like, "Where are we?" And I said, "Dallas." And she's like, "Is that in hell?" And I said, "What? No, it's in Texas." She's like, "Is Texas another word for hell? This is awful."
You should have told her it's not Dallas, it's Houston.
Well, that was her only experience.
That's right on the coast.
But the whole week in Savannah was fine, but she just stopped and she she was mortified.
Houston is terrible. I mean, it's real hot, real humid. Even the wind is hot and humid. I mean, it's just there's not.
You know, you roll down your window when you're driving, thinking the air will come in and
Cool.
blow. It's like it comes in, and you're like,
You immediately break out in sweat.
Okay.
But Junction's not like that. It's hot, but it's dry there,
Because it's hot.
so it's a little more tolerable.
It's still
Very tolerable for me, not for everybody else.
where you grew up.
Yeah.
So you met Marcia in school. You took her to junior prom. What made
not
you?
in school, not in school,
Not in school.
in a
At
nightclub.
the night.
Oh, right.
And let's
when you were
just
still in
clarify.
school.
Let's just clarify.
It was a teenage nightclub. He
It was a
said.
teenage nightclub, but Mom, maybe you should tell the story. How did y'all?
Here, you kept on.
It's just funny.
He was there with some of his friends. I was there with some of my friends. I had lied to get in because I wasn't old enough. Had my grandfather drive me there because he thought he was taking me to leave me at the roller rink, and so I took my skates with me and went inside and dumped the skates in a locker. And I don't know, both of us had been there for a while, and I just kept noticing this sweet, tall, handsome guy. And
And then she saw me.
I was not shy. And I went up and asked him to dance.
Wasn't he dancing with another girl or something?
No, we both had been dancing. dancing. with
Yeah,
other
it's it's just like a little nightclub. You circulate around and dance with different people.
I thought that
He was a bit shy.
I
as
was.
far as asking girls to dance.
I thought there was something to do with him dancing with another girl, and you told her lights were on out in the parking lot or something. I don't know.
You know, at this point, 53 years, well, actually, we've been married 53 years. We dated 4 years before we got married, so that was 57 years ago.
Well, you could almost make a videotape of Marcia's stories about her grandfather. He was a character. And I still to this day wish that there's things that he knows that I knew, that I could learn. He could make a board grow. I mean, he was something else.
He had a lot of Indian blood in him, so he had a lot of knowledge of how to make things grow.
My question was, when you got back from the military, what made you decide you were ready to get married?
Because we were already engaged.
Oh, were you engaged when you went? Okay, well that made that easier. Like, let's do this. Where'd you guys get married at?
She was living with his family.
In
Oh.
Houston.
In Houston.
At the First Presbyterian Church. It's right across from the high school. I can't remember.
You don't even remember it was a Church of Christ?
Was it?
Yeah. Memorial Drive Church of Christ.
At that point in my life, they were all the same. Church is church,
Yeah, he had gone anywhere, but I told him that this is what we're gonna do.
It's
Yeah.
a good answer.
But,
Yeah, and we got ready to leave, and they filled our car with balloons, and they dumped motor oil on the engine so it smoked.
those were your friends.
Yeah. Well, but
Our best man and the groomsman.
I got even with them. I raked all the balloons and stuff out, and the preacher came out and made them clean it up. And so they were going to follow us, honking the horn. They couldn't because he made them clean it up before they left. But,
Yeah, no, I lived with his family 18 months before, because that's isn't that how long you were in Korea? Or was it 13 months?
13 months.
Yeah, I lived with them because things were really rocky at my house.
We got an apartment after we got married in the combat zone in Houston.
But we didn't realize it when we rented it.
We were laying there in bed one night and you hear this pow, pow, pow. And you could see the flash, the muzzle flash from whoever was shooting at whoever.
In our window.
Yeah. Of course, I had to get up and look, and Marcia was, get out, get out. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't live there real long. That
Yeah.
was when we both quit our jobs and moved to Junction.
Yeah, that was a definite factor in us moving.
What about, just in case my battery does completely die, one of the things we always end up on is, like, what advice would you give your kids and grandkids?
Work.
Work?
There is a good work ethic. It's almost, if not, better than a college degree. And that's the honest truth. And my work ethic was second to none, I think. And I made more than class 4 engineers. And when you talk about making money and had more job security than everybody except for the president of the company. So, and it was work ethic, not college, not, anything other than that. They asked me to go offshore? Yes, sir. They asked me to stay late and do some extra work? Yeah, okay. And that's critical, I think, in having confidence in you from management. So, that's my work advice.
What about life, family advice?
Well, be a man of your word. Whatever you say, that's what that is. That's your word, and that's what you do. It may hurt, but that's what you do.
What?
So be careful about what you give, what word
Careful
you
your
give.
promises. What about you? Do you have any other questions? It's for you, baby. I promise you'll watch it again.
Well, when we lived in Junction, I can just say this little
Please.
addendum. We learned to eat turtles, deer, squirrels, turkeys, just about anything that's edible, fish of all kinds,
We did
Because-
it last night.
because of it's tough times, and I just told Marsha, I said, I'm gonna get out and get us something to eat. And so my grandparents had a small part of the family ranch, which was 350 acres.
Oh,
Yeah, that is small because their ranch originally was 10,000 acres.
oh gosh.
And then when my great-great-grandfather died, it got cut down to about, I think it was right around 2,000 acres each of the kids. And then my great-grandfather sold different parts of it at different times. And I think when Leon sold off the last part of it, he still had something like 150 acres or something. But yeah, 10,000 acres, yeah, it's a nice little patch of ground. That's the kind of attitude they have. Because the Paint Creek Ranch was 70,000 acres. The YO Ranch was over 100,000 acres. And that's all local. That's all out there. We went and visited some friends, and he said, turn all the lights off. So we turned all the lights off, and he was up on a hill. You could look in any direction. You could not see a light anywhere, because that's how remote they were. But anyway, yeah, it was pretty nice. Nice experience.
Sounds like a very good life. Except eating a turtle. I don't know if I want to eat a turtle. How's it taste? What's a
Oh.
turtle taste like?
Chicken.
Does it? Okay.
It's
But
really
they're so
good.
stinking cute. I don't know. That would be a hard one.
No, it's good.
Chickens
'cause
are ugly. I could kill a chicken. I don't
Well,
know. If I
what
could
you
kill
do
a
is-
turtle.
it needs to be a soft shell turtle, and you
Okay.
take and cut the legs out, and then you skin the legs. So it's just like a little hot dog or a piece of meat, I mean, it's just and it is tasty. It's pretty good.
I don't want to trick the kids and get them to eat turtle. Oh, they would freak out.
But the turkeys that we had were wild,
Mm-hmm.
and Marcia would make open-faced sandwiches. Oh, they were so good out of the turkey.
The gravy on top.
Yeah, with gravy. Yeah.
Yeah, his grandmother taught me how to cook, and everything she cooked had grease in it.
Either butter or bacon grease. One of the two.
Makes it tasty.
Yeah. And that, living in the country, I mean, that was where they did, the way they did it was pretty neat because us kids, we worked until about 3 o'clock and then the rest of the time was off. They had over a mile of riverfront, so we'd go down and swim in the river and fish and take our 22s down there and shoot sticks in the water or whatever, you know. And yeah, it was a great time. We learned tremendous amount of stuff about getting along and all that. You even got bit by a rattlesnake once.
I hate
But
snakes. That's like my biggest fear.
One time though.
What
That's all it took.
Yeah, like they take you to the hospital.
No. He bit me on the leg and it was just, they call it a dry bite.
Okay.
And so they don't inject venom in you. And I never even saw the stupid thing. He was in the grass on the bank of the river. And Jerry was with me. Jerry started up the bank and he was first and I was second when he bit me. But I have laid waste to all of them that I've seen.
I would have died from shock. If there is a snake in Idaho, I think I've run into it on accident. I ran one up on my bike. Did I ever tell you that story? Swooped right up my face with the girls in a trailer behind me. I wrecked like you would have thought I'd been run over by a rattlesnake. My mom's just staring at me. I'm screaming. Yeah.
Well, there are snakes in here in Idaho, but it's called a rubber boa.
Yeah, I hear all sorts of
Harmless.
things that they won't hurt you. And I'm
Well,
just
Janelle ran into a snake the other day. It was
That was a skink.
a snake.
so it had a look
Black, and then it had like a rainbow.
and a blue tongue or
Yeah.
yeah. My daughter has one of those as a pet, and I say it's a snake with legs. They don't move like a snake. They're horrid. I don't like any of them.
We've owned that ranch 30 years, is it? How long?
We owned it. We bought it in 1990.
What year did you graduate?
92.
92. So you lived there for a while. Did you graduate from Junction? No.
No, I graduated in Houston.
Yeah, it didn't take us long to see that kind of set me up from then on. You know, even though I never went to college, I was still lead engineer. That was just my title. And in the meantime, Marcia, she climbed the corporate ladder and was the vice president of Encore Bank. And she did real well working for them. And so we bought a house out in Sugar Land, lived in that for a while. It was a big house and it was on the lake and all this. It was in a gated community. And then the economy started turning down again. And so Marcia decided that she wanted to retire, and she did. And about that time I was getting close, and this was about 2010. Something like that, because I'd worked almost 40 years in the engineering business. And Marcia,
I worked 22 years.
Yeah. she worked in a bank for 22 years. So we moved to Junction and had bought the ranch. I actually had a second business that I did, drawing U.S. patent drawings for. I went out and got a bunch of clients, patent engineers, patent attorneys, and I did their drawings for them, and it was a part-time business and made really good money. And so we bought the ranch, and it was just a place to go for a long time because we didn't plan on at any time particular moving there, but we did wind up. And all kinds of funny things happened out there because of, my girls. They were city girls, and they brought their friends out, and they were city boys and girls, and so it was pretty funny.
Because how big is Junction?
Junction is 2,000.
2,000. Oh, little. Okay.
No, it was when my grandmother was going to school there, it was 2,000. When my mother was going to school there, it was 2,000. When my brother went to school there, it was 2,000. And when we lived there, it was 2,000. So yeah, it's just a little country town and never changed. And sometimes that was hard to get along with because you got to change with the times. But so we lived out in the ranch for a while, and just recently we decided that we would sell the ranch, and if we could sell it, we would sell it and maybe buy a house here in Idaho and move. We bought the house that we're in here, the one on the lake, and to have a place to go and stay. And so, and we liked it pretty well. I'm still struggling with the winter idea, but Texas doesn't have those.
Have you been up here at winter time at all?
Once or twice. Once we drove down the street, and it really impressed me because the snow was the same height as my pickup, and you couldn't see the mailboxes because they were under the snow. But yeah, who knows? So you just take it as it comes. And that's kind of what the plan is. We come out here a lot, and during the summertime, where we spend the summers and fish, and sometimes we fish every day, and sometimes every other day, and we have a pretty good time doing that.
So, going back to some of the things in your life, there's been a lot of stories that you've told, us growing up. When you were in high school.
Oh.
I like hearing about, some interactions that you've had, because you were always very stubborn, and headstrong. But the thing that always stuck out to me was that you always stood by your word, and I was always impressed by that. And so your interactions with your teachers reflected that. And so some of the stories that you've told us, like I'm trying to think of the details around, was it a spelling test you took, or a test where you had to get all the answers right?
Well, this was in elementary school.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and elementary or junior, elementary, I guess. And they gave us a spelling test, and she said, okay, you have to keep taking this test until you spell every word correctly on it. I said, okay. First time I took it, I misspelled one word. So she told me to sit down and take the test again. So I said, okay. Took the test again, and I spelled every word just right. She took the test, she said, do it again, you were just lucky. And I said, no, that's not what you said. You know, you said if I spelled every word correctly on the test that I could go because the school was over. And so she said, I said, sit down. I said, no, I don't think so. I think I'm going home. And I stood out and I walked out the door, and she came running across the courtyard there, yelling at me. And I just went home. And I told her that she didn't need to follow me because, I mean, I was going across the bayou and I didn't think she could make it. And I mean, we walked across a big pipe, and that's how we got across the bayou going back to my house. And my mother agreed with me. She said, you know, you live by what you say. So that, and even in high school, I got off the school bus as a freshman. I've always been a big kid. And so I got off the bus and started walking in, and they had a big canopy and a concrete sidewalk. And it was a nice school. And so I'm walking down the sidewalk, and here's these two football players. They stopped me. And they said, where do you think you're going? I said, well, I'm going to class. And he said, well, he took a penny and threw it down on the sidewalk and said, push it with your nose. And I said, no, I don't think so. I think if we're going to fight, let's just get it on, because I'm not going to push that penny with my nose. And they just turned around and walked off because they realized, you know, it wasn't worth the fight. And there were all kinds of things. One time I got in trouble for fighting in the parking lot, which I didn't fight. The guy came up and he said, oh, you think you're real smart? Because I rode to school with a friend of mine that day. That day, I mean, it was like I never got to ride in somebody's car. I always rode the bus. And so he came up and was trying to fight me, and so I would just keep him from hitting me. I didn't want him to hit me. But I didn't hit him back, you know, I didn't try to hit him. So here comes the teacher, and they grab us and take us down to the office. And the principal comes in there and he says, okay, you were fighting on the grounds. That's three pops. And I said, what? He said, I wasn't fighting. He said, what do you mean? I said, do you see any marks on him? I didn't lay a hand on him. I wasn't fighting him. He was fighting me. And he said, no, you're getting either that or you're going home. I said, okay. So he gave me 2, and he says, is that enough? And I said, whatever suits you. And about that time, the football coach, walked by and he said, you're hitting the wrong end. But,
Well, my dad was one of the few sophomores that made the varsity football team. And I remember you telling me about the kid in your neighborhood that wasn't too nice to you. Or wasn't it 2 brothers that weren't?
Oh, yeah. The Boyd brothers. They rode the bus too, and so me and my brother rode the bus, and he was old, you know, obviously he was 2 years older than me, or a year older than me. We got on the bus and we sat down, behaving ourselves, and here come the Boyd brothers. And they grabbed his shirt, threw him on the floor, and said, "That's our seats. Get up." So, okay, if that means that much to you. So I got up. Then they walked over and said, "These are our seats too. Get up." Anyway, finally, it came to an impasse, and we went on to school, and we got to school, and everything went on. Well, when I was a sophomore and playing on the varsity, I was a defensive tackle, and one of the older brothers lined up in front of me. He was an offensive tackle, or offensive end. And by the time I finished with him, he said, "I don't know what I did to you, but I'm sorry." And, there's retribution sometimes for what you do. But that was all fine and good. I didn't get in trouble all the time, every now and then, yeah, okay, but it was always very minor. They filled in one of my classes, and they had the wrong class, and they put me in a homemaking class, and that didn't last very long. They said, "You can't cook like that, you can't fix that." I said, "That's what I like." So anyway, they didn't make me stay in there. They changed me. And they put me in another class that was elementary analysis, as was the class, which is an advanced senior class. And I was a sophomore. And so they said, the teacher just said, "Well, just sit down and make like you know what you're doing, and so we're getting you transferred out." And so I was passing the class when they finally transferred me out. I thought, wow, that's something. But the coach, all the staff, the principal, after the ordeal with the SWATs and all that, were best friends. I mean, they'd go out of their way to pat me on the back and ask me how I'm doing, But
I always thought it was interesting. Dad, how old were you? First time you got to eat in a restaurant?
49? No. I was at, I know when it was. When Marcia and I went out on a date before one of the formal dances, or junior prom, was it? Yeah. And we went to a real restaurant.
What restaurant?
Vargo's. Wasn't that right? Vargo's?
Good memory.
Nice.
Where did that come from?
And that's an upscale restaurant.
Well,
Is that? Yeah.
That came from my deep mind and my worry about drinking from the finger bowl. So, what's this,
Do you remember what was so special about Vargo's?
That was it owned by Elaine Block? No, I don't remember.
It was one of the first restaurants that was built around a tree. It had a live tree growing in the middle of it.
Oh, fun.
Well, I went to school with rich kids, and one of them was Greg Pappas, and they owned